Welcome to another episode of First Step, where we get industry professionals, leaders in their fields to share with us the steps they took to get them to where they are today. And we are continuing on our journey with the lovely Dr. Jennifer Rouse on our part two. The first part would have been gestation. Now we're going into blossom. And where we left off last time, we were now going into the journey of her finding her independence and striving out on her own and moving into her love interests and whatnot. So, Auntie Jenny, how you going?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Wonderful.
For each of my days, I picked some of my okras this morning. My okra trees are blooming.
Oh,
So you see, all of those things keep my joy buoyant. My produce now.
You understand? I feel you had to write like a book of poetry or something, you know. Words,
To know the recipe. To know the recipe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so we want to pick up now, as I said, on where we left off last. And, you know, you were giving us such in-depth point of view on your coming up from young with mama and your dad and your family into school, into, you know, again, moving out on your own. So,
and highlighted most of the areas that were influencers
exactly.
to where I am.
So recalling from where I said we left off,
Yes.
You were now in El Socorro, and
On Independence Day, the day that I moved.
exactly.
So what I recognized when I was mulling over where we had left off, just two points that I think should be made especially for the viewers and listeners who are following the story. I was not at Tacarigua when we moved, because when we had moved as a family from Tacarigua when I was about 7, between 6 and 7, and we moved to Barataria.
Oh, okay.
And by the time I was ready to leave in 1973, as the year, the composition of the household was much reduced. I only had 2 siblings home at the time out of the 8.
Oh, okay.
4 had gone off and got married, and then 2 were they emigrated. The 2 eldest, the girl and my brother and sister.
Right. Okay.
One was in England and the other one was in Canada.
Okay.
So the household, beside mama and daddy, had one other brother and one sister. The sister that was before me, who was 7 years my senior, and the brother who was, I think, a year her senior.
Right.
And
the sister would have been the one you would have kind of confided in the day before independence that you need to leave.
The independence, the night I just started packing.
Right.
Slowly. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just started packing based on the kind of trauma that I got as a reaction, visceral reaction from my parents. Mama, I said, froze, and daddy was the one said, she's mad. You know, he was always very boom, you know.
Direct.
And I remember the tears just came, you know, from that well. And I know it wasn't fright. It wasn't fear at all. That much I know. But sorry to see that this is how it, because, you know, as what they would have expected, it was either I was getting married or going away to study. A girl, especially a girl, and in this case, the last girl, the last child, going off on her own in Trinidad, where he was well known. I'm stressing the he this time. And the kind of moorings he had, how would he explain this? You know, because the first thing people would say is that, well, the homes was either dysfunctional, right, or I eloped or I ran away because of pressure from them. And it would have been, the onus would have been on them, you know. And I went in my room and I started just packing a little bag, a literal bag, not suitcase, not anything suspicious. And I just said in my mind, I would leave tomorrow, but no plan designed chapter and verse. But when the morning came, I told my sister, I said, look, I have to go. I said, but I will leave a note and explain to him, because before they feel that I just disappeared. You see, because throughout everything, I always kept the respect that I was nurtured in.
Understood.
You don't break away from those norms and values and mores. That's how I grew and how I was. So it wasn't anything that I was trying to be totally outside of who I am.
Right, person, right.
No. So out of respect, and what I should put in here, the respect that I had for my father was more based in fear. I feared him because he was straight, and it had nothing to do. He was beating us and all of that, but his authority, and his what you say when you say no. It had no vacillating. Well, ask your mother, and no, it was no, and so I clearly had a fear of him, but the least I could ask him for something or assistance with, whether it's my homework or whatever. And his discipline was so, you could measure it. You knew that if you didn't go to him before he started eating his breakfast to ask for the traveling to go to school, you had to wait, because he's not getting his hands into money.
Right.
No. You lapse. You should have gone before, when you knew he was finished saying his prayers,
Right.
had his shower, and he's now coming to breakfast. That's the little sign-ups.
Window, right?
Sign-ups. Good. So I left the note, and very brief note saying, well, based on what transpired last night, I thought it best that this is the most opportune time to leave, and I am going on my own, and so. I can't remember the exact words.
Right.
And I left that with her. Well, of course, my sister, she's trembling because she's in Korea now to take the note. But fortunately, as he left for Independence Parade,
right.
She sneaked into the room and put it on his bureau, his dressing table, as we called it. She couldn't eat that day because she just not understanding anything that is happening around her,
Right.
My brother, he just sat quietly, and he didn't know when I left exactly. I think he went with him to the parade.
Okay.
So by the time they got back, well, I had gone already, and I was telling you, I went to a house that had no electricity yet. It was a brand new apartment. I didn't want an apartment that was used before. I wanted fresh energy. I had to bring my energy there. And all of that was, and I'm seeing it so clearly now, and I took the upstairs apartment. It was a block of 4. And I took upstairs because old people are saying don't let anybody sweep on top your head. In case you never heard that.
I never heard that before.
So the upstairs didn't mean hierarchy, but it meant you're in a free space.
Right.
Good. So as I said, I used to spend my evenings when it was getting dark, just on the veranda and read and whatever. I had no TV, I had a little radio and whatever. But one of these things also, beside the composition, and I'm saying this again within a context of where it will lead. During my courtship, because I met Gregory in 71, and by 72, I didn't meet his mother. I didn't have a chance to meet his mother because she passed away about 4 months after I got to meet him from an asthma attack, And so his younger sister, who was 11 when the mother died, she had a PTA meeting. She now would have just entered Holy Name Convent.
Right.
And they had a PTA meeting, and she asked Gregory to represent, her parents, because the mother would have gone. And he asked me if I will come with him. And I said, sure, because I really loved her. She was like a little doll, And the two of us went. And after the meeting finished at about 5, we were walking down, where Holy Name is. So we were walking down Frederick Street, and we went across Frederick Street. And while walking, it was such a cool, laid-back afternoon, And we were in a nice conversation. So his hand was around my waist, and my hand was around his waist. And we walking down, he's escorting me to get my taxi. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know Daddy passed on his way home, driving, of course. And I didn't know until I got home. So Gregory didn't come home with me because, remember, I'm visiting him. And when I got home, Daddy didn't pounce on me, but I think it was later on, about an hour after I settled myself. He said, "A minute, please." So I went. He said, "I happened to pass down Frederick Street and I saw you and I can remember him calling his name correctly anytime. And you all were walking. What vulgarity, you know, in
Vulgarity with your hands and his hands.
embrace.
Yeah,
Yes,
walking
that's how he
around the way.
registered. And
Well done.
I didn't jump back like, what? No, I kept poker face and I'm listening to him, He said, I mean, like in other words, in our vernacular, now where you going with this? It's not just holding hands, but this embrace in broad daylight. And at that time, I remember I said I used to read a lot in the room. And I was at that point where I was on Gibran's The Prophet.
Okay.
So I could have told you The Prophet in my sleep,
Right.
And the next, I think that very night, I went into my room and I started to write to him.
To
And
your dad?
my dad, yeah.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember how I started the paragraph by saying, out of respect, I know I need to approach you on this matter. However, I will not challenge. I am not in any way able to challenge your authority or your volume. And this is why I chose this method of communication rather than speak. And I after that, I remembered saying, in whose eyes does the vulgarity lie? As a rhetorical question. And
That was a little sharp though.
I told you, when I look back, I must put these poor people in trauma because remember they were already old parents from old school.
Right.
And when I look back now, none of my siblings ever challenged the daddy. And little me, who everybody knows as Smiley, who would ever think I'm a radical or some revolutionary, But clearly, there was, in looking back at when I took actions to do certain things, quietly as it might be, I was clearly a radical and a self-starter, which is how they call it, I don't remember always having to consult somebody when I have to do something, like, girl, what you think?
Right.
And no, it used to always come from a prompt inside of me. And just how some people would be vacillating with something they want to do with the preface of what if?
Right.
Like, what if I do? I wouldn't be what if. My question would be, why not?
Well, because you find that's an interesting thing because a lot
Yes.
of people, everybody have processes, and
Yes.
sometimes you get like an inspiration or an inclination for something, and you start to think, and the doubt comes in, or you start
A
to
whole slew of consequences.
Yes.
Which isn't wrong because you're
Right.
supposed to do that, but it paralyzes you.
Indeed.
At a certain point, you could be paralyzed into inaction, and you just don't move.
Through all these processes and rationalization.
And you're weighing the pros and the cons, and of course the cons will weigh you down.
Definitely.
And you say, you see me now, boy,
Yeah.
I ain't ready for that. No, I don't remember going through all of that.
Right.
It was just like, why not?
Good.
And again, so when I wrote that, as you say, that was blunt, that was sharp.
Yeah.
That is not a daddy like mine.
Right.
And in whose eyes does the vulgarity lie? And I remembered saying somewhere in it that, quoting Gibran, which I was full of, children just pass through you as a flung arrow, and allow me that space. That's how I ended it. Allow me that space to grow. I need that space.
That kind of took me back, just to interject a little bit.
You were free to.
It took me back to one of my own experiences when I was coming up from I was doing A levels at the time, and I studied sociology,
Right.
and that subject flipped my brain upside down, inside out, and I was strong on Marxism and the concept of the elite proletariat and this and that. And my dad, I remember I wanted to go out, but at the time, my dad, I had these little kinkies in my hair now. You know, and as a black man, this expression could be also a bit radical.
Correct.
And I wanted to go out, and he's saying, boy, take that out your head thing. And I started quoting all this, but I didn't write.
You would
I
speak it.
spoke.
Yeah.
You know, I spoke at the time, and I guess my dad and our relationship may have been a little different in our dynamic. You know,
Yes.
It's the influence of what I read as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Because the reading, I mean, I used to be buoyed. I used to be transported to places just from that reading, you know. Whether we are called dreamers, I don't know. But I was literally transported with this thing. It really, you don't get that from a Mills and Boons and a comic and a this and a that. It's serious books that are not. And the other thing with it is, because I told you already how much we read, it was, the reading wasn't just a pastime, you know, and the effect that it had, little did I know, that is part of building your capacity, building resilience, cell by cell, brick by brick. So in that, even though you're in that silent space, you're growing like a plant. The plant growing vertical is just one part of it, but if you don't grow horizontally as well, with your roots going way down, you're not gonna withstand the branches. So growth sometimes is not seen, which is when I always use the parallel with the butterfly.
Right.
When it is as a chrysalis, it looks inactive, it looks dead, it's like a twig on a tree. Anybody can lick it off, and it's very vulnerable. Don't forget that part. You're very vulnerable, but at the same time, if you're grounded enough in that inner conviction, and the way mine was so quiet, it wasn't like combative. It wasn't that, who the hell he thinking? No, I was always respectful, always. I'm very, very sensitive, extremely sensitive at an emotive level.
Right, I understand.
And so I'm packing the bag and I'm crying, but not crying boo-hoo-hoo. It's a sob. It's a sob. Maybe now that I know better, the definition of a catharsis is purging of the emotions.
Oh, okay.
So that was what I was going through, but didn't know all these labels then. So by the time I took my little taxi the next day and so I know I had to give those 2 omissions from where we were last.
Right.
Part 1.
Right.
So I moved out at 1973, and then reading still. And then it was about a month, I got my electricity, which was the end of September. And then the following month, I got a message in the office that Daddy wanted to see me. So this is the first meeting I'm having with him since leaving.
Right.
And again, guided, I said, you know, rather than just walk swinging my hands, I will take one of the books that I had read already. And for someone like him, who is already a reader and a deep thinker, let me take one that is not too complicated, but lucid, but at the same time embracing the philosophy of yoga for a Westerner. And it was called Vedanta for the Western Way by Christopher Isherwood.
Okay.
If like I give it to you, anybody, you can read it and take from it what you need at that point.
Okay, I understand.
And I thought this would have been the best move for me. So I did go. I was a little, the little temerity and timidity there, but maybe it was humility too.
Right.
But fear. Because I don't know what to expect. But
this time you would have been about 19 years old?
No, I left at 21.
20, okay, right.
None of this was part of my design or choice. You notice what I said? I left on Independence Day and I'm 21. That doesn't mean I'm not trying to give a subliminal message that you were supposed to get keys to freedom at 21.
At this age, right?
No. So when my sisters left to get married, they were all past 21.
Okay.
And I went, and it was a very cordial. He sat, and as I told you already, he's a listener. He listens. And he told me why it is he called me, because he wanted to understand, what I was doing. And I tried my best to explain. And then I told him, I brought this book with me that I would like him to read and get a sense of the philosophy that I'm not a what we would call it, this kind of staunch believer that, because I was never a groupie, never. Right. And I still am not. I'm not just bowled over with something somebody tells me. It has to make sense, and I have to feel it at a cellular level before I start contemplating, well, maybe I should take a jab at this, And the meeting was about an hour. Mama didn't come. She didn't talk with me. She kept her back to me in the kitchen, and I passed. I said hi. I can't remember. She might have answered, but it was soft. Because she's still going through her dilemma, And quickly moving past that, I didn't hear from him after. So I know he would have been reading it. And it was years later that my sister, who came the following day to meet with my little bag with other things, not a suitcase, nothing too outlandish. But it was years later that sister told me that what my dad did, she didn't know about the book that I gave him. But he made a trip to visit my brother, who was then in New York, the eldest one. And he left for New York. And it is only when he came back, he heard him talking to Mama, not in total detail, but he said, Merle, my mother's name, I went on a little expedition while visiting Jeff, who was my brother. And he looked at the back of the book, back cover, and saw the address of the publisher, which was at the Vedanta Ashram, I think, in Manhattan.
Right.
And he asked Jeff, he went with the book, and he asked Jeff to take him to that place. As I told you, he was a grandmaster of Freemason. So that already is a philosophy of its own. And he went and he visited, and he had a long conversation with the resident Swami, because whenever the Swami came, they came directly from India.
Right.
And all he told Mama, this is what my sister Helen is telling you. He just said, Jenny will be okay. That's all, That's it.
Right.
No more detail. Whatever they exchanged, I never knew the conversation, and I will never know.
Right.
But he needed the clarification. And I think he visited him more than once during his stay, during that stay.
In New York, okay.
Because this is his child. He wants to know, because they had a lot of Maharishi people around at that time, with the Malas and the Afro robes.
Right.
And he wanted to be clear, it was not cult or something that might have been a brainwash. But he never told me anything. So he never discussed the letter I left about where does the vulgarity lie. He never discussed that. It remained.
Yeah, because I was actually curious to find out what his reaction was.
No discussion. None. I came home from work the afternoon, no discussion, and not ever since. And I never prompted it.
Right.
And then this other note that I left that I'm leaving, he didn't mention it in the meeting. But at least he saw that out of respect, I did tell him where I was, So that needed to be filled so that you will understand it in context.
Yeah.
And in about 2 years hence, that was in 1975, my brother, the one who was home at the time when I was leaving, he was a teacher, and he got killed in a vehicular accident.
Okay.
So they had to come and call me, and we had that show. He died at 32.
Mm.
And that kind of devastated my mom. Devastated. I mean, she never was the same after that. Still her jovial way, but it affected her nervous system in her spine. And she would walk and so, but she would started getting like pain and whatever. So that trauma. And he was the one that did most of the chores she would have wanted help with.
Right,
So
right.
that was a big blow. So she hadn't fully gotten over my exit or exodus,
Right.
and now to deal with this, you know?
So what's right.
Yeah. But Daddy haven't made that outward move to invite me in. And the atmosphere was not as resistant as I expected.
Right.
And so it made me now reciprocate. And I started going back to visit.
Nice.
And bringing back Mama into the fold because she needed that kind of support. I didn't wait a whole 2 years till his death, but I would visit not very much until gradually, again, what I started doing, because in my apartment, wasn't fully furnished, it's one thing at a time. I say, you know what? I'm going to start to sew. And I started to make my own clothes with patterns. Those days, you had patterns, and I bought my patterns, but I went home by her to sew because I didn't have the machine.
Okay, nice one.
And so there was a nice relationship that we built. And well, of course, like a mama, every time I leave, she had to give me food. You know, she would give me some food because I'm now learning to cook as well.
But I'm curious, what was your relationship with your mom? Because I mean, most of the conversation would revolve around your dad.
Right.
But, yeah, in terms of her personality, was she more...
Yeah, that remember, I think I mentioned where when she was making bread and I would read to her, you know, we had a jovial, because she was the conversationalist in the family, you know, and she would give us the jokes when she go to buy her chicken and the poultry shop and all the characters that she would meet. So she was always a very simple person, but very sociable. I mean, people just gravitated to her from in the road, who she doesn't know. As a matter of fact, in today's world, she would have been too friendly. Too friendly.
Okay, well, then I can now identify probably where you got your charm and
yeah, that clearly came from her.
Right,
because some of her schoolmates, when they visited and saw me, they say, Merle, look at your child. The smile, that is you. And as I said, her school friends, this is another thing that was a subliminal influence. When they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, all the guests were who they went to school with, who eventually they all worked like the postmaster general. He was a teacher. They were always in touch. Always the church, where they went to church and whatever. So there were no strangers in the gathering.
Right.
And so look at us now. I don't know where some of my peers are. So those who might have been best friends in Form 1 were not the best friends in Form 6.
True.
You know, and we have email and all these things, but where are they? And so those are the little things I look back on because they always had that solidarity. So, you know, when you're listening to the conversation between them or amongst them, you would hear them remember, you know, and they heckling Daddy. You remember when you see my Merle carve, so you flip, you know, and they giving jokes. And what was the menu was like a okra and rice. It wasn't that you're ordering from some restaurant or no, everything was right in there, you know. So I looked at all of that they had this kind of sustained relationships that were like the bedrock. And they visited on every weekend. Every weekend, one visited. Either Daddy went to somebody or they came home to us.
Yeah, and as you said now, conversely, in this time of so much communication and accessibility.
Disconnected.
Totally disconnected.
So you know, and everything is Facebook and whatever, social media, just call it social media. But we had the actual conversation, you know, and even when I was small and they used to do it, I would go inside. I remember 9 o'clock was bedtime, but I would always marvel at the words they use. I would be like, hey boy, what's there? I couldn't understand half of what this, and it wasn't that they talking gibberish. It's just that they were also literate in terms of what they read, that when they spoke with those words that are now almost redundant or obsolete. You don't hear people conversing with those words. It's almost poetic.
Okay.
And I would marvel, you know, and say, man, here how they're making it. It's a song like music, you know. But
nice.
Then fast ahead now.
Yes.
So in 1975, my brother died, my brother passed. I am now sewing. This is my way of engaging myself and cooking and Gregory's not there yet. He came, as I told you know, 75 he's there already.
Right.
Because he came almost a year after. And then when it was about 76 or 77, somewhere there, you know, but about 2 or 3 years after he came, you know, he came home a day very excited, you know. So he met this person, you know, he described the woman. I wouldn't call her girl because we now in our late 20s. And he said, you know, she had been away in Canada for some time. Now she's engaged. She was engaged to her person, but he said, you know, he found her so brilliant when he got into discussion, you know, and he would like me to meet her too and whatever. And he did it. So I said, sure, you know, and she came home and we really had a nice evening, you know, and then she left. And then after that, when he saw her home and or saw her out for a taxi, and so I think she drove, he had this discussion with me, you know, on the whole question of monogamy. Monogamy. And he was like, you know, the culture we have come out from, and, you know, it was I wouldn't say it was just a light discussion, but it wasn't too weighty. But I did ask him, where you're going with this, you know, if this is the way you like. He said, well, it's not that he considered that, you know, to be the way to be, but it concerns him because the disproportionate ratio of women to men, what happens with all those women, just like myself, who out there, as they say, you want to be the social worker. I remember saying that. I mean, we both laughed, you know, but the discussion was robust. It didn't go any further. And now, I remember now, your parents might have come somewhere in those late 70s and lived in the premise on the other side of another new apartment, you know, so that's how I got to meet them. And I am learning, and again, I had to do everything manual because I'm on my own. So I didn't have osterizer, I didn't have washing machine. I used to have to go downstairs on the jigging board, which I never had to do. So you only see blood on my fingers because I didn't have the art in it.
Right.
And even grating coconut, blood in the coconut, because I have no osterizer, you know, I'm going to family. Also, what was part of me is that where we lived, Third Street was nearer the highway end, and I would walk to market. That was my treat. I would walk to the Quasi to market like 6:30 in the morning, and then we'll take a taxi back because I always liked healthy wellness, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then the reading endorsed that too. So we skipping because you know everything can be a story. So we skipping. So I'm sewing, I'm visiting, I'm coming home. That's how the trend going. Right. And then,
but in the middle there, I just want to touch again on that one conversation which you brought up, which I'm thinking would be of some significance as we're moving forward. That monogamy conversation.
Yeah. Yes, because he said, you know, it's not right that. Oh, and then I raised the point. I said, so if the ratio, if the demographic was different, where the men are in the majority with fewer women, what would be an idea? Would I be allowed, saying it in those exact words, to just say, well, Greg, you know, this is really not making sense, that I have to be tied to you. We are
Yeah.
not wedded, so I didn't take any vows to say if even I'm breaking any contract. I am free to say, well, you know,
Let me do
look
my
at this
social
guy.
duty.
Let me do my social duty too. And I think I remember him saying, you know, as if, well, women, the way our roles are, we are not kind of designed for that. I say, oh, in what way, you know? Because as if he's trying to infer, well, maybe the men have the phallus and we don't, that they have an additional organ that we don't know. I wanted to probe. That's why I say it was an interesting discussion.
Right.
You know, where he was going with that, maybe to justify that when he starts to roam, or and he wouldn't see it as roaming, that I would be comfortable to
Right.
know this is,
You're already kind of conditioned with that.
yeah. And it was how we are really socialized, yeah.
Okay.
And if you really understood something, you know, back in our culture from the motherland, it was more a matriarchal system.
Indeed.
So I never studied that in depth to know how that worked out. But it was a good discussion. I don't remember getting worked up and whatever, because I kept it, trying to make sense to me.
But did it trigger some thought in your mind that maybe he might?
Yeah, of course. Of
Right.
course.
Okay.
That's why I said it. So I like where, that's why I
It's
say
coming
where,
from.
yeah. So, but I left it.
Right. Okay.
I just left that in suspension and, well, went along working joyfully. At no point did I ever feel in that relationship control. I didn't know my colleagues at work, because we worked, as I say, in the same place. I didn't know my colleagues at work were kind of like saying to themselves, you know, have this woman so locked down, you know, because I told you we didn't go to FET. We didn't go just partying and lining.
Right.
And no, you know, so to them, a 20-something-year-old, this is jail. There's real jail. But I didn't know they're saying that behind my back.
Right.
Later, real years later, that's how it came through. So when it reached, I think it was now 1980, because from El Socorro where I lived, I used to have to take taxis, or 3 taxis to get to work. And I say, you know, go and get your license. And I started to take driving lessons in Port of Spain after work. Again, you see the self-starter, all these prompts
Right.
just come in, you know, and I learned to drive because it's all part of my always wanting to be independent. You know, I value my independence and being in control of my choices,
Right.
you know. And so I got my license in 1980, but I did not borrow anybody's car. I did not go hankering after, you know, every opportunity to drive.
Right.
And I eventually got my first car in 1982.
Okay.
2 years later. Now, during that time, while in El Socorro in Third Street, I met Jack Brown and his wife, Lynn, who lived higher up Third Street. So when I'm walking out, sometimes we would walk out together.
Right.
And so we got to talking because you know Lynn as well. And we kind of meshed well. And then after a couple of years, they moved down to my block of apartments and they had the ground floor on the other side, you know. So sometimes we would be washing together and we would chat a little bit. And one day while I was washing, Jack Brown, he was a panist. He used to play with Tokyo.
Yes.
So he had a tenor pan home by him. So he came and brought the pan on my side, which had more space, of course. And he started practicing. So I said, what's up with you? So he said, girl, you know, panorama coming and whatever. And he said, so you ain't want a little touch? So that's the first time I touched a pan with pan sticks. And I took a little run because remember I told you very early in part 1, Daddy wanted all of us to do music.
Yeah, exactly, to be exposed to music, yes.
Yeah, so I had done all the music through the Trinity School up to grade 8, which is the final grade. And I only stopped from going further because of GC. I had to study, you know. And I did
up to grade 2. So you.
Well, you see, so I went right through to grade 8. So my sister, she still plays in the church, you know, at the organ. So that sense of musicality was already ingrained, you know, part of the mix. And I was in awe, you know, how he was practicing, because every day, you know, for Panorama, you have to practice your tune and whatnot.
Yes.
And lo and behold, he said, so why you ain't want to play? You ain't want to play for Panorama? I said, well, I never thought about it. And then I say, question again, why not? Remember the why not?
Mm-hmm.
Good. And just as it happened, Gregory's supervisor, where we worked, in where he had worked in Liat or somewhere at the time. No, he wasn't in Liat. Liat is finished. But he got in touch with this guy who was now revamping Casablanca.
Okay.
And this was the like 1980.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted players. And I said, well, Greg, let's go, you know. Mm-hmm. Never went in a pan yard.
Right.
Never played a pan. Don't know what the names of the different pans are.
Mm-hmm.
And I went. Now, there's that here. So what I used to do, so by the time I got to talking, I observing the guys, most of these guys from around that area, Belmont, I am up in El Seguro. And I just, the feel of the yard, the drum in my chest, I said, nah, boy, I had to do this, boy, I had to learn, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I used to come home from work, eat a sweet bread or something, and then take the taxis back down to the street right there, not Dark Island, I forget the name, I think it's Dark Island, in Belmont, where the band was. I had an experience I will never forget. So here is me now, aged about 25, 26. And the guys knew I was not one of them. So when the cousin began and they'd always say, sorry, ma'am, you know?
Right.
Sorry, sis. Mm-hmm. And I just smiling, I just in awe, you know? And I played for Panorama in 1980. I think I played the guitar band.
Okay.
When it started me. Mm-hmm. New experience, totally new. And I felt so empowered, you know, because as I say, it was my choice and I came home. And that was another experience that I chalked up. But Gregory then got his own pan, a double second. And he had it, no, this wasn't in 3rd Street, we got that after. But this was the 3rd Street experience.
Right.
So this is now 1980. We played, we didn't even, I think we were eliminated after semifinals.
Right.
So I didn't know what the finals experience. They the first time I'm going up the greens and the stretcher.
Right.
All of that.
This is just totally mind blowing and new to you.
Totally. And one little joke I will squeeze in is that, you know, which I didn't know, that you run the tune on the track.
Yes.
So when we run the tune, well, you know, all the people at the side, all inside your pan, looking at your panmanship, as they say. So you're dancing the pan, you're doing all the instruction that was there. And I played my heart out. I didn't know that I had reached the stage yet. I thought it's there that they're doing me judging. So I play my heart out. Well, now we reach up on the stage and the lights come on a freeze. Because the lights of the TV make it look like they're seeing you alone. You know, whole sweater. Everything just went blank.
Oh, man.
But the advantage of playing by rote is that your hands remember.
Yes.
So I only had to glance at the guy next to me and my hands.
Pull back in, right?
But I am like a deer in headlights. Why these lights so bright? Didn't know that it's there. Really have to perform. But that's a standard joke I have with one or two friends. That's how green I was.
Nice.
So it didn't mean that every year now we're playing, no, or living in a vineyard or going wherever they are. You know, I just used to stay home for Carnival. I was for 19 years of us living together for all of that time. 19 of those 23, it was years. No Carnival. I used to tape the semifinals. That was my, and semifinals used to finish all 3 and 4 in the morning. So I have all those tapes, you know. That was my joy. Like if I dare, you know.
That's interesting. That's really interesting because I guess you would always remain so open to experiences, and as they say, why not? You know,
That's the key word.
move.
So it, as where I am now and looking back, and you are teasing out things in my memory, it is as if this time for me, this chapter on the earth plane, is to just experience things that I outside my box and don't get enmeshed in it to the point of being what they call it now, sycophant or addict to it. I never got to those points in it where like I'm a all-stars fanatic, and no, everything was as if, oh, this is what this is.
Yeah.
Or like a child in wonder.
That's essentially. I recently, of late, probably within the last 2 or 3 years, that came to my realization is about experiencing, you know, and not trying to limit yourself and being, narrow.
And you see, and the girls, there's a gender issue here now.
Right.
Girls were more limited than the boy children.
Girls had it very, very hard.
Had it locked down so the boys could explore.
Yeah, easily.
And if they didn't explore, they would call you a sissy.
Yeah, boys had to go exploring uninhibited, yeah.
Uninhibited. And so when a girl did something, I mean, girls just didn't go in the panyard.
Right.
Where you go in a panyard, there's only hooligans and vagabonds and whatever. And I proved that it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, because remember, I am living now on my own. I'm not under my father's roof.
Right.
So I have to ask permission to go and maybe get, no, you're not going there. You got it. All this I envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't even ask the question. That is how the respect, backstroke fear was in me.
Right.
But the amazing thing happened, and that's why I had to bring in this whole experience with the band. So while doing the practices and so, when we coming on down now near to the panorama, in visiting home, I said, Dad, you know, so, that man that are in a band, you know, and a play, listener, his whole face just relax, and he look at me. He said, "You are in a band?" I say, "Yes, a playing band." And we going up for panorama because he always listened to the whole of panorama on the TV. Never. He said, "Yeah." I said, "So," he said, "So you're going to play on the stage?" I say, "Yes." He said, "Well, you must say, Merle, did you hear this?" All right, she comes in, and then he said, "My goodness. Did you know where?" Because this was in the daytime. And this man gave me an oral history of Pan. Mm. Well, I had to sit down. He went back to 1929 when they had a town hall meeting under the British colonial rule. He and another teacher and a few people there were black, but they had a lot of whites. And this meeting was called in 1929, in Depression years. He was married then. The meeting was called because the middle class went to the governor, they formed a little caucus, and went to the governor and said to outlaw the Pan is a noisy, paganistic, maybe dealing with the devil, is a drum. And it didn't have discernible notes. So he's explaining this to me. Yeah. And I said, "So you talking about 929? So Spree Simon."
Exactly.
As he says, I listening to they're not asking us the questions. Spree Simon wasn't even born then.
That's just it.
You know? And
you're telling me 1920 something and they're talking about Pan, then Spree Simon came in.
1929.
Yeah.
And he said when he heard now the governor, the mayor, or whoever it was that they had running the councils, say, well, and the priest was there too. Remember, church and state were locked in the colonial era. Right. And the people were, yes, they are noisy, they are nuisance. And when it was going on, well, people in the community knew my father for being a risk taker. Right. As well as he was such a proud black man, he was never intimidated by the white colonial rulers.
Which was not A normal situation?
No. So he stood up. He stood up in the meeting and he said, "My Lord," I remember him saying it. He said, "My Lord, this thing," they didn't even have a name for it because it was an oil drum.
Right.
He said, "This thing, do you realize that the fellas that, or the boys, he would call them, the boys who were playing this, if they weren't engaged in that kind of activity, they would have been vagabonds because they just used to be, they were unemployed, they were just hanging around doing nothing. And they are trying to do something with this, what we would call a discarded drum." So he said the pan only had 2 notes, bong, bong.
Yeah.
And all you could hear them play was "God Save the King." It was the king then. And he was like, Merle, this thing is really causing them to engage. They were not rivaling, they were not fighting, but they were engaged in this thing. He said, and he said, "Let us wait, let us hold our hand and see where this thing goes." And here am I now, thinking like the other, but my sibling, "Where you going in a panyard? You want this man to die?"
And now he's showing admiration. And
Now he is like, "So one of my children has done it." You follow?
yes.
So I say, "Guess what? I'm bringing something for you." So because when you're playing Panorama, they give you like 2 t-shirts. So I gave him one. Well, Mama say he didn't even want to wash it. He wearing it right through. Right through. Amazing. And when for semi-finals, you get another set. So I gave him one of that too.
Wow.
He was like, it was euphoric for him.
Wow. But I really, what stood out to me is that little footnote there with the history, because
yes.
Now I don't know.
Remember,
historians even did a good job of digging into the origin of this thing.
And the people of that era dying out.
Yes.
So now, you remember I made a statement in part 1. He was a person speak when spoken to, answer when called. So that whole saying of when you seek, when you knock, and the door is opened. And now that I'm in the field of aging, I realize now from the nonagenarians and the octogenarians, those in the 80s and 90s, you wouldn't see them just talking. You have to go to them and ask the questions. And what I also learned in my studies is that over 85, their long-term memory is sharper than their short-term. So they would know exactly where all these panyards were, the whole genesis.
Right.
Of when the bands began, and then of course morphed into what we now know, because a lot of the ones we know were breakaway bands of where the original ones began.
Wow, you just sparked something up in me there, Auntie Jenny.
Yeah, boy. So that will tell you some of the things they're going to say in part 2. We just touching on, because and so when he sat me down and gave me this, that was the start of a totally different relationship now with he and me. And it was from that point I called him Granddad. And one day he said, "Why are you calling me this Granddad?" I said, "Because you represent like an elder to me, and the archival information," and I said this when already I was in university, because, I just skipped in to let you know when he asked the question, "Why am I calling him Granddad?" I said, "Because that's how you come across to me
at this stage.
You roll at this stage, because it's only when you listen. We had some discussions. Well, I was then brave enough now to ask him about the lodge and the Freemason, and he's asking, he's given me the whole context and the genesis, because I told you he was a very thoughtful speaker.
Right.
You see how Obama pauses before he says a word?
Yes.
That's how he used to speak. He would think of the word. And that was a wonderful journey. And it is not that we got so close that Mama was at the side. No, I had my relationship with her going all the time. When I go in the kitchen, that's where we jam.
Right.
And I would always marvel at, when she was a sweetheart. So when she cooking, the street smelling. When there are the guys doing lock joint, when they were digging up the road and so on. And I was going out a day, they said, God, your mother killing us here. Your mother killing us here. So I went and I told her, I say, and I went outside, said, they're smelling the fish, they're smelling the dinner cook. Yeah. She started cooking for them on a Friday, yes. And daddy's only saying, look at her, look at her. But you see, they, like the Lockhorns and these cartoons, you don't get inside there. They had their own alchemy. Right. That. So he is the one going out and in and she did hers through walking. Right. So that's why when my brother died and it affected her nervous system, she discovered that when she was trying to do those same walks to the poultry shop, and so she would have to always walk close to a wall. She would feel disoriented, like she was drifting, Mm-hmm. So we had to kind of be more watchful of it.
So I want to now kind of take us into a bit closer to you now, getting into...
Well, I'm reaching out to Santa Rosa.
Right, and now you getting into your journey,
So 1982, it is when I played for Pan, and that's when he made this metamorphosis, within me. Mm-hmm. By 1982, where we were with the air break with Liat and so, no, not Liat, 82. That time I went across the Titas, which was the first air bridge. I went across there in 76, and Gregory and I worked again together in different departments. And it was there that they merged with BWIE in 1982. Mm-hmm. And we went across, we had to go up to Piarco. So we moved out of Port of Spain and had to go to Piarco. That was another major ship, But we wanted to be a big airline that we could travel and all these. But I was never one into much travel. Mm-hmm. So it was Peter Perrier, who was the manager of the air bridge. Mm-hmm. Every time he would ask me when I take in vacation, where am I going? I say, home. And he was the one got the form and filled it out for me to get my passport. He said, I had to travel. So I went to my first trip in 1978 to New York by my same brother, Jeff, and it was there I started building now my record collection, my LPs, with the jazz and all. That's where it began. Nice. And I would only go away there to shop for that, not a set of clothes and all of that. Because I'm a sewing, remember I tell you a sewing.
Yeah, you have your own.
1982, that was the merger. And then as I was working in Piarco now, I say, I need to be living this driving from Sanwa to Piarco.
As a pull.
Yeah. I said, let me start looking for some place high up. And then I was paying rent. Why don't I buy? There's another, why not? And I have no collateral because my salary, when I was rented there, my salary was $406 gross and my rent was $160. And I
that's something ridiculous now.
Yeah, 406. Wow. The rent was $160, which was considered phenomenal.
At that time.
One or two people said, Gail, that man digging out here, the landlord, brand new. Okay. And it was during that time, the discipline that I had, because I didn't have much disposable income. And I was vegan. So I used to buy a bag of 8 or 10 whole wheat rolls every day, cheese. And I was using that and a little juice I would buy for $1. My treat would be when I buy a potato roti. That was my treat. I don't remember pizza and things being around. And I would buy that and I would see or a currants roll and a juice. That was my digression. So every day with the cheese, I'm tasting different things, but I'm locking it down, not complaining.
You're on a mission, yeah.
On a mission. So now we enter 1982. I got my car, a little mini. And by the next year, and I start now finding out what you need to get a house. Because I would need even collateral to get a loan for the down payment. There's not even the 80 or 90%. This is, I'm just going and I'm finding out from people, bankers. And I was able to use the car as collateral Would you
How to
believe?
get right.
Yes, and that's why I say, as you ask, you learn. And I was able to get the deposit.
Okay.
And I'm because I looked at classified ads and different things, and that's where I saw this house in Santa Rosa. And I began speaking with the owners and so, and then you had a timeline. If you paid down, you had, I think, within 9 months to pay the balance.
Okay.
But at the time, because they had something going on with these houses and the escalation of the prices beyond where they should have been, the market price. The banks were only lending 80%. So it means even when I get the 80%, I would still have a differential of 10%. Going back to Daddy now, so the loan processing, I get all the paperwork and whatever. Gregory was hesitant because he was like, where are we going? The doubt.
Right.
And also, we had announced that they were laying off.
Oh.
And he was like, you mad again? He say, you have to be mad. How? I say, hey, even if I have to suck salt, I want the letterhead of BV to say I'm working.
Right.
I only need that to say I'm employed. People outside don't know that we
what's going on it. Right.
Once I get that, I could eat bricks. That's how I say it. Eh?
Right.
And that's how I did it. And the BV did not close. Good. And I became lady vice president in the trade union.
Okay.
And flight attendants and the junior staff. Yeah?
Okay.
So I was saying all these little things because each had an episode. Eh? I like so 1982 was another major development now where I moved.
Right.
And I'm in the process of getting my house, which came through in 1983. By 1983, guess what month again? August. So here I am, August again, that is following me, that I am moving. And I had, and to get it, the differential, I went back to Daddy.
Okay.
And I told him I'm in the process of getting my own home, my own house. And this is what I am faced with. So I don't have the income. So he said, that's what I'm here for. He's pleased again to see his child.
Right, progressing.
Not through marriage, not through whatever, but owning my capital, my assets.
Right.
But he's not telling you all of this. Eh? Just said, okay, how much do you need? I doesn't tell you, he didn't talk much. He said, that's why I am a parent. Because the mere fact you came to me, you have a need.
Right.
And when you're getting the loan, mind you already take out a paper with a sheet of blank paper with a carbon copy. And he had a beautiful script and he's writing, this is your agreement to pay the installment each month. He's writing it out in your presence and you sign as a co-witness that you have agreed to pay him back over the period of so-and-so the amount.
Right.
And I took my carbon copy, he has his. I took the original, he has the carbon copy, and that's what I did. And lo and behold, in the very first year of occupying
Santa Rosa, the union and the company, they looked at the surplus of what was in the pension fund and gave to workers. Everybody got 11,500. I'll never forget that. Papa.
And as I got it, I just handed it to Daddy. I know I needed to build a wall. I wanted to do all kind of things. You're now going into your new home. You have things to do. And what he did tell me, when he gave me the loan, he said, now remember, this is your home, and it will take 10 years before it reaches the way you would want it. He didn't say, it really took about 10 years. Where you build a wall, then you get a water tank, then you put roof, little by little.
Right.
So, you had that guidance. Don't get too excited because that's what this is about. It's an investment and a 30-year mortgage. It is 1982. So, excitement. So, this is where now we learn in a new area again, Arima, which is it's a clan, eh? Arima, they hear them say.
Yeah.
And so this is 1983. And what I did shortly after moving, settling, within the first year, again out of health and wellness, they used to have these cassettes being sold for Keep Fit Exercise with Jane Fonda. And I got my little video player. Those were the big tapes. And I got a TV, and I started doing the exercises from in my drawing room.
Right.
So what you're doing, just to stay fit. And shortly after that, about 84, 85, another friend of a colleague in BWI who lived up Tampuna Road in a huge place with huge, an expansive land, wanted an instructor to run a class. She just had this idea because of the ambience they had.
Oh, okay.
Through somebody came to ask me. I said, well, I never did exercise to teach it. It was just for my enjoyment. And so she said, try it, because everything was trial and error. And I started going there from about 1985,
Right.
86.
Again, you said, why not? And you went and you did.
Why not? And I went, and I had a big class. It was a big class. And, and I would tell her what to get with the maths and whatever. And then 1987 comes, and Gregory is working, he working ship system. And we changed the car. We had another car. And the movements, didn't start acting with the movements yet. It was Carnival. So this is Carnival Tuesday. Now, he was a great photographer.
Right.
Because he had taken up a photograph he had one picture of himself, which I kept on my desk in the office, a nice size picture. And he would take pictures of the garden, because I started a little garden and so. So in 1987, and I'm now about 35, everything going nice. He comes home that morning from his ship, and he said, you know what, I'm going downtown, and I'm going to take pictures. I'm just going to walk through bands. And I said, sure, no problem, and he goes. Gregory did not return until Ash Wednesday. I am waiting home on the car. I hardly sleep because I don't know what's going on, what happened. Right. He didn't come in until about 7:30, which is around the time I would usually leave. So just as I was getting ready to walk out, a taxi comes. And I was annoyed, but I never ran away. You would just know from his silence. And I just said, well, we'll talk later. But I don't have time now, and I went. So when I came in the afternoon, he said, well, what's he? So he said, well, he was taking pictures and whatever. I try to remember if I asked him that very night. No, I don't think I had any long discussion. No, it remained. I just continued doing that. But I'm noticing now his movements now are changing. Come home, bathe, change, gone. Because the ship would have your off days. And I had calls to just call him. I said, listen, after I saw it happening for about a month or so, right. I said, what's going on with you? Did you meet somebody? You seeing somebody? And the way I was asking very pointed questions, he didn't have a recourse. He could have lied. But he said, yes, he met this person in the band in England Minshell. Very nice.
Right.
I was dressed already to go to instructor class. And I felt like something physically shifted inside. Because now this is my first experience of outright now betrayal,
right,
infidelity, whatever you want to label it. So right. I sat down on the edge of the bed. I was kind of numb, not kind of, numb. And he was a little hesitant, looking at me, like how a dog would look at you. Didn't speak much. I say, okay. When I go to the class, and when I come home, I say, "You sure you don't want me to drive?" Yes, and I said, "I could have." But listen to me. I was like gossamer, like your feet not touching ground. I don't know where the head is, no focus, but it is what it is.
Mm.
Move out to the class, but my stomach just went, eh? Not in the form of a diarrhea, not that way.
Yeah, yeah,
Just like something was gorged out.
yeah. Oh.
And as I reached, I try, but I eventually told the owner, I said, "Look, I'm not feeling well today." She said, "Well, I noticed you went to your usual self." I said, "Yeah."
Mm.
So I think I have to go. So I apologized to the
Think
student
up.
to went back home. So when he heard the car pull in, and he came out and so and I said, protocol to keep the food. And I just remembered lying down. And I lay down for 2 days. So you're allowed 2 days sick leave.
Oh, you lay down for 2 days.
2 days. Oh, they call it supine. Supine on my back.
Uh,
Not eating, I could only drink.
uh,
So I think he went down the road because he looked scared.
mm-hmm.
And he bought a drink, like how we would have Ensure, one of those things, and I drank that. Not talking. I felt like eggshells, like if even I spoke, it would reverberate.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's so fragile, and I'm good. And it's only, I think, on the second day, I can't remember if he stayed home with me or whatever, just to make sure that I kept some hydrating.
Right.
It was the second day. He came next to the bed where I'm lying there. Not just pure silence, but not silence with anger. This is just pain. So when he asked, when I was able to speak later that evening into night. I think we had a discussion for about 2 hours or so. And I remember saying, and this is the part I would share. I say, it's not so, I have nothing to do bashing whoever it is, and I have to think they're better than me. Or it's not about this. I say, where the hurt comes from? The investment that we made before the house and all of that investment in leading.
Mm-hmm.
I feel now like I had to do GC, A-level, and university to pass to meet the criteria that you would have liked.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes this person in a band, makeup, I don't wear, but totally antithetical to what we laid down. And we had a plan. We had what we will be doing. So in getting the car, in getting the house, and making a home, all of that was towards this goal of being change agents. Because remember, we coming out of social movement, eh?
Right.
So you still want to change the world, but you realize now you can't buy the world, but at least you can change pieces.
Yeah, little pockets, right?
Little pockets. I said, so you made it look as if all that work I had to go through, this one just come in with not even GC, no script, you don't know level. And as I'm going to be saying, just so, I say, if you told me you were going to ashram in India as before, I would have said, not a problem.
Right.
If you told me you're going to join Greenpeace Corps, who was big in the dance then, with 2 fellas alone going out to just save animals, save the sea, save the marine life, I would say no problem. Because you know why? It was something grand. It was something mega.
I understand.
And this looked so
basic.
I can't remember if Young and Restless was going on at the time, and for me to use the term. I say, you know, like a young, that's, and the word I use, I say it's so ordinary. That's the word I use. I say it's so ordinary. And that shift that I felt physically ricocheted, it reverberated throughout my system. Because the next day, which would have been the third day if I'd stayed over, and I went to the office, the first thing that I did was remove his picture. I just symbolically, no speaking, I just removed his picture and I put a double exora, a double hibiscus that was from the garden. I put that picture. So he visited me during lunch. Because I just wanted to check in to know how I was doing. Today's my first day at the office. And he noticed the picture was gone. So he said, boy, I realized like a fall from grace. Response, I didn't respond, but he observed, you know. And to fast forward, because I'm not going into all of the details, but what really happened was in the following like 2-3 years, because this was, I say, 1987, 1988, 89. What I didn't know the label for it then, but I knew it now, much later. I was becoming a passive aggressor. Because my joy, that spontaneity, that freestyle, that wasn't there. I was more measured, more quiet, you know, but not quiet because of vex and anger. It's just because I didn't know how to get through this. So a lot of work was going on internally as a guide, as a way forward, you know. And so what helped was to keep the class, because they always tell you when you're going through that kind of thing, if you do a workout, like go running, something to sweat. So to keep that helped. So I went back and I taught with that vigor. I lost a lot of weight. Weight just went. I lost weight. Of course, people would think I'm losing it because of the exercise, but nah, boy.
The banker.
That one take the, you see, because it shifted the whole value base that I was building on. And what came in my head was, wait a minute, and this is something I will say to females and women. I'll say it because some of the people who have given me feedback on part 1, I know are young still, and they're waiting on this part 2. Most of us, as girls, as young women, when we meet this partner that we feel comfortable, we know this will be lifelong, we tend to make this person centrifugal. And you lose contact with friends from school. If you're not going, and if you're going out, it is with this person. And so there were times when even I would ask him if I saw a concert or something advertised, and he'd say, oh, well, and I would just say, okay, and I don't go. If I said, well, after this carnival, well, let's go and hear some pan, I don't go.
So you could almost lose a piece of yourself.
I was. That's what happened. I said, wait a minute. And so with that symbolic removal of the picture and that self-introspection, reflection, the word that hit me, because when I look in the mirror and I saw on my neck, I lost weight. And I say, Rouse, beside reparation, you have reclamation. You had to reclaim yourself. And I made it like a mental directive. You ain't going down so. And even when I was drinking the liquids, I kept saying, cells, don't give up on me. Don't give up on me. Now, all then, I don't know that the cells have their own intelligence. All of that I learned in the last decade. You got it? But I made a mandate. I gave it a directive. I said, don't give up on me. Not this wrong. This too ordinary. And then I started. You got it? I started now on self, because the reading, I shifted the reading entirely. So all the philosophy, the spirituality, the comparative religions and all of that are consumed. I mean, it was all of me. I put that aside. I say start to get Western literature written by women and start to build. And I looked for like Working Woman, and there was another one, Woman Today or something. And really, and I have a collection of the best articles.
Right.
I still have it here in my library.
You know what I realized? Just to add a little thing, like for me, I'm not as voracious a reader as you are.
Yeah.
I would read. However, my thing is I follow a lot of podcasts and people speaking and all that. I love that.
Right.
And
You were more visual and audio. Visual.
Exactly.
Correct.
So one of the things that I realized for myself, I have seasons where certain things, depending on what I need, I draw to that naturally. Somehow this is what comes to me.
Right.
And as it relates to what is going on with me, that is what, so at that time you would have needed those Western teachings from those women to empower and catch back yourself again.
And they gave you basic things like rearrange your furniture, change your decor.
Right.
This was building capacity at another level. You're not going into whether it's white women or whatever, because I'd already realized in reading feminist literature that it was more white middle class women that were behind it. And the colored, the minorities, and the black, they weren't in the equation. So this was Jenny on Jenny, quietly. Whereas when I started going to see the movies, and so you're seeing the first visceral reaction of a woman, what's love got to do with it? It's to fling the clothes outside, burn whatever, burn the car, you know? And that was not me. It was more an implosion, but I know I'm not dying in this. I have to reclaim myself. And in so doing, I started the building block. So the exercise was one part, because it was a mixture of calisthenics and yoga. I would teach and aerobics, low impact.
Right.
And then, because of teaching the class at her home, she then was getting some problems with some of the persons attending. I can't even remember the details of it. And she just wanted to kind of wind down. And then some of the people, when she did make the announcement that the class will close, I think she gave about a month or 2 weeks notice. Some of them who were really doing good came to me and said, "Now we can't just stop so."
Right.
I said, "Okay, you don't go by me."
Right.
You got it? And so what I had done, I put on an addition on the house, because the back, I made a back porch. And I had extended the washroom area. And so the back porch was where I ran a class with one or two neighbors, and all of these are married women and so. And that class I did after work. And then from that, one of them had worked BV, and it had men too. I invited them because they would tell their boyfriend or whoever. And then one of the guys said, "But why you don't do a class like this in BV?" And I did one. So I did one in BV in the mezzanine building upstairs after work. To just encourage women, you just sit on your work and then you go home. You see? And so I ran those classes for 7 years. You know, and the one in BV was for about 3. So here's where now I am seeing about Jenny.
And reclaiming Jenny.
Claiming Jenny. And the more I invest in Jenny, things were coming to me. I didn't go out searching for them like these activities I just outlined. So I'm reading a different speed, different literature, not still keeping my home, because I saw my mother as a homemaker, cooking and so. And I didn't like this passive aggressive. It was misaligned with who I was.
Right, okay.
It really vexed, but you're trying to look like everything okay. Now, you're living a lie, and I don't like fake. So that's why I worked so intently on getting that over. So now we reach 1990, not yet with the coup. This is early in the year. And out of the blue, because I'm getting back strength now, feeling good.
As a process boy, I mean, yeah.
And what I also started doing, I got like a girlfriend from in the office, and I would want the shows that I wanted to go to. I would buy the 2 tickets like I normally would have. And when Gregory would say no, I would just keep it. Well, now is, hey,
Let me move.
Let's go. And we went.
Right.
And I felt good. It was never tipped. I will show you. No. It now wasn't about him, because up till that point, he had occupied all of my being.
Right.
All the attention was there. So now this is me now eking out to be now center stage of me, but not in a selfish, self-centered, ego-driven, that wasn't in the equation, which I now realize was tempered by the yogic philosophy, in my understanding of it at that time. So 1990 came, and guess what Rouse does? Now I love to dance. I love that playfulness. I'm a playful person, a joyful person. I say, but I can't do that with the jail friends are doing and whatever. I need a fella, I need somebody to dance with.
Right.
Here's Jenny. I wrote a little note. I can't remember what the note said. This was a guy, cute, but I know what he represented was he always liked dancing and fun.
Right.
So the intention was not, again, tit for tat. I knew more of what my intention was, rather than what I'm fighting against. It was never that. And I sent him a little note. I said, check me over by my office. He was working on the over in the hangar, because I always used to lime, not lime, but the fellas would call out to me when I went to the canteen and what. So that's how I knew them. But this one, I had known him some years before, and that's how I went to him. I felt safe there, and I said, you know what? So when he came home, well, he looking kind of like, where, who, what, because he's married. I have my home, and he's like, okay, because as I didn't tell it before, but the guys in BB would look at me from a distance.
Oh, okay.
It's only years after they would tell me, where you going with this man?
Right.
But it was never lust, as they would talk to me after. And I made the brave move. I said, listen, and no explanation. I don't remember having like a sit-down discussion and saying, listen, this is what I would like to do. These are the terms, nothing. It was pure, maybe it was Ib, how, was the psychologist, I remember, Freud.
Right, okay.
Ib, you're not rational, you're not going into logic and ration. No. It was, I want to experience this. I remember, up till this point, 16 years with Gregory, no party, no joy, you enjoy the music.
Right.
You play the music.
But everything was very...
Spirit.
Yeah.
Did more. And listen to me. That was another walking on water. I felt emboldened. I felt empowered. Not I'm going to show you, but the spirit, that joie de vivre, was revived.
Wow.
But more interestingly, he remarked, he said, why you doing or want to do this, which even would appear to others like an affair?
Right.
He said, because you're not outside material.
Right.
Now, for those females who are going to be listening to this, that is a discussion by itself.
You're not outside material. Right.
I'm not opening up a Pandora box or whatever, but it is root for discussion because of how males see us and whatever. Who are the outsiders and who are the this?
Who you want inside, right?
Who you want inside and who is house material. All of that could come out of that, but we're leaving it there for now. It's on me. And I really want us to finish in this part 2, because I don't want part 3. It's too much anxiety for them waiting. So we accelerated,
Right.
you know. But what was interesting, beside his remark to that, it was the feeling I got of having that invigoration, reinvigoration, and the alignment of my spirit with my action that redounded to the energy in the house. So that passive aggressive that I was slipping into, that was eclipsed. Because now I was, listen to me, it may sound cokey, but I was genuinely more, I don't want to use the word faithful, but more, not loyal, but my relationship to Gregory was, I saw him for who he was.
Okay.
I was able to meet him where he is. And, you know the saying, grant me the serenity to accept. This is who he is. Then I realized I had deified him. So now I'm seeing him as a mortal being. With all the flaws
of a mortal.
Yes. And who am I now in my situation to point the first finger? You see? And I even went so far as to say, because one of the readings I had of one of the saints of the Eastern philosophy was so clean and pure of all those things that when even some of his aspirants, his followers, disciples, wanted to trick him a day, and they put money under his mattress, and he lay down that night, and he got up with pain on the spot. And when he raised the mattress and he saw it, he asked, who did that? And coming out of that, the lesson was, you know, when you introduce that contamination, or what we may call a blemish, it affects the space. So when Gregory did what he did, infidelity, betrayal, what he did subliminally was maybe, beside affecting the energy, made me see, why not?
Yeah.
He made it look, well, this could be done.
Right.
You see? But it was never where I set out to do this strategic. No.
So I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question, Auntie Jenny. Within that time, which would have spanned, I kind of lost the time span, let's say about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Is it that Gregory would have been still engaging with his activities?
No. Oh, you now remind me of a big chunk that I didn't. So when I got to sit, and thanks for keeping the thread, when I got to speak with him about the relationship, which he had already admitted he was in, very soberly I said, listen, clearly the discussion that you started, that we had some years ago when we were in Todd Street about the more than one woman and
right.
Clearly, it means the seed is still within you to maybe have a concubinage or a harem. However, now having acquired a house with a mortgage and all of these things, all I would have asked is if upfront you would have at least told me you were hell-bent on going this route, and then I would have known the choices to make.
Right.
Whether to invest in this home building and all that goes with it. And I would not really be against you, because I would have been able to hear up front and be able to say, well, you know, I don't follow you with these terms and conditions, because that's not the value system.
Right, for you. Right.
And it's be rough.
Okay.
And it, you know, so I said, so in keeping with this, and clearly you seem to want to see this person more, let me meet her. Bring her to let me meet her. So he was like, dear in him. You see why they're telling me I'm mad? You see, that's the reasons why. It's not that I'm ranting and I'm raving very quietly. Because in lying down those 2 days, there was a shift.
Mm.
I cry what I had to cry. Let the tears out. No boo-hoo, just let them out. So now, in more sobriety, I'm able to say, well, listen, if you are going this route, I need to meet this person. I can't be doing things and you are going one place and bring her. And
Mm.
we did.
Mm.
And we met. And
Wow.
she too was timid. So when I saw well, I don't want to say the child, because I was 35 at the time, 36, and she was, I think, 23 or whatever.
Okay.
And I felt motherly. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I felt motherly. You see, because again, how we were socialized, the first reaction, knee-jerk meaning she had to be a slut or you want to be mean. And she's a nasty person because she would have known that he had somebody
Right.
on.
I was good.
Got it?
I got you. Now, Auntie Jenny, I want to get to take us now to the stage where
Page where
the whole catalyst just switch upside,
right.
and now you know
Yeah.
again.
Well, we come into that because we will finish. We will finish today. Well, these were all the integers
Right.
that made the sum.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, and we met, and she was very, I had to end up telling her, you are not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Gregory's the issue. That is where I come in, and we will have to discuss this, what it is he really wants and whatever. Good? So we will stick a pin on that. Mm-hmm. So in answer to your question, the relationship or his visiting must have lasted a month or more after, but I wasn't keeping check. I was just saying, brother, almost like you're on your own with this. Mm-hmm. But I hear my home base, which I invested in, I mean, where am I going? To go back home to that? No, it didn't make sense. So I'm still there. So it's 1990 to like 1993. Mm-hmm. That was when I'm going out, and very discreetly, yeah?
Right.
Not that I'm out every weekend or whatever. And by 1994, because all this happened between 1990 and 93. Mm-hmm. And I'm enjoying it because, I'm going to concerts, I will go to a cinema show with girlfriends, and now I have I wouldn't even call it my intimate partner because we were not into I don't want to hear any weighty discussion. I had all of that already.
Right.
This is now just pure enjoyment, entertainment, and fun.
Right.
And so that fizzled by 1992, 93. Mm-hmm. He too was experiencing a trough where he was. Mm-hmm. So we both needed that respite, kind of like, listen, just don't go into too much analysis, just let us be.
Right. So
it worked for both therapeutically.
Right.
So it doesn't mean now that I'm a philanderer, that I go in hopping and no. I'm anchored. That was an experience.
Right.
Up comes 1994, and Gregory got retrenched from BE. They had and he was the only one in his department that got retrenched. As a man, he's now he would be now about late 30s, about 40. Mm-hmm. And what also I did when I reached 40, with the class I had, I did my first hike with them to Maracas. From Sao to Maracas. So I always remember that. I will know when I'm 80, that at 40, I did a hike to and fro with some army fellows.
Right.
So Gregory got retrenched in November of 1993. Mm-hmm. And it started at about mid-1994 or early 1994. Oh, and also what we did, we had a massage studio.
Right.
We started that. Because of being retrenched, I told him, I said, listen, don't worry. You're a very good masseur. And what we will do, the place that we added on to the washroom, you can have as a massage parlor. And that's what we did. We furnished it and everything, and he was doing that. Mm-hmm. So that took him into 94. But little did I know he was going through the motion, but really it was devastating for him. At
Oh.
that age, at that time in his life, so he never showed the signs. And I could vouch for that because I just know when he has his parlor, so he could be self-sufficient. And his meltdown began. I could look back now and say it clearly was depression, but how I would have envisaged depression to me with somebody sleeping all day and whatever, no, his wasn't so. He would just go out while I went to work. He would go out, and I don't know where he would be.
Right,
And he
right.
would start staying out for like 3 days.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know where he is.
Okay.
And that ricocheted on me, and I began losing weight again because I stressed, I worrying, you know. And I got some dogs. I always love, I'm a dog lover. So he brought the dogs, and I had the dogs there. You know. And because of my private, because people don't know I'm an introvert, because I'm so animated, they feel I am always out there. No, no, I like solitude, and I mull things over. Before I lash out, I mull it over to say, now, what am I to do with this? You know, I always have these internal conversations. And I'm feeling myself breaking down. And I think I got I got bronchitis. Because I used to suffer with that as a little child. And it came back, you know, and cough when I felt. So I felt so weakened. I called on my sister-in-law, who had mentioned to me in passing that she used to visit this naturopathic doctor in the Southland. And I just called her and I said, because I got a phone,
Right.
and I called and I said, look, I need some help. That was my first time that I ever reached out to anybody external to myself to say, help me.
Wow.
And she said, you could drive. I said, I don't think so. So she said, okay, I will come and meet you. Let me call Stephen, the Stephen Ali Lucas. And this is November 1994. And from then until he passed away in 2015, I became his loyal. He used to have me something like a model client because everything he told me to do, I did.
You did right.
Yeah. And that was that journey. And he really, when he captured me at that point, I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. He tell it to me then, he told me that after. So he made all these natural drinks to clean me out and really start building me now from the inside. That was a journey. That
Wow.
was a journey. And so I, in stress, started visiting, and then I learned the route, and I would drive myself. And after every treatment, I would go back to let him check up on me to know what was happening. And when it was about, so Gregory still going out, coming in, and then he phoned me at work a day, because I'm still going to work, and he told me, that's where I first heard the word cataclysm. He said, Jen, I know you wouldn't understand what's happening, but this that I'm experiencing is cataclysm. And he broke down on the phone. And I really never saw him cry like that or heard him cry like that. I allowed him to catch himself, and then he said, so just bear with me because I'm confused, but not in a good place, you know. And so I am treating with me. So what I started doing is walking through Santa Rosa, you know, do like hill walks and whatever, because I want to get myself in order. And I understand what's going on with me. Here goes. So I pick up the phone and I call. This is another guy from the hangar who, whenever I'm walking to the cafeteria, would say, Miss Rouse, you see all this philosophy and philosophy, that's how he used to tell me. But talking, one of these days, I want to see the real you, who you are behind all of this. So we would both laugh.
Right.
And sometimes I would sit with him in the cafeteria and with other guys, you know, we would be laughing. He was who I called. I called the hangar, I asked for him, and he picked up the phone. He was there.
Right.
There, you know, I'm not feeling good. And he asked what happened. He said, you could drive? I said, yes. He said, well, come down to the office car park and I'll meet you. So he's telling me afterwards when he hung up the phone, he looked at his other partner who shared the office with, and he said, "You know who just called me? Jennifer Rouse." He said, "Listen to me." He said, "Right now, I can't talk. I can't." He said, "Yeah." And he did come and he picked me up and he just took me for a drive. While asking me, he knew I wasn't talk, but he asked me straight up questions. And he took me right down to where the yachts are, not yacht club, further down, by Shagarama's area. And he parked the car. And do you know, I put my head on his shoulder and went fast asleep. I must have slept, he told me, for about an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. And up to this day, he tells me, he say, you know, he didn't know what, because he's 9 years old, younger than me. He said he's looking at himself. Jennifer Rouse is in his eyes. I mean, I can laugh now. He can't believe. He said, I'm in a peaceful sleep. Didn't know where I am, because which means all the time, all the stress, I wasn't sleeping. I was just knocking out maybe and getting up.
Right.
And then he brought me back. And then another took me back to get my car, and I thanked him, really thanked him. That was that experience head on. So he kept in touch with me now, understanding what's happening.
Right.
And I think Gregory crashed the car or something, but I know I didn't have a car. So when he would take me home, he would see the house and he would see how my affect would change when the house is in darkness. So he installed sensors, light sensors, so it would go on. And I had the door. But what he did, in another outing that we had, we were driving down, we had reached about Valpa. He didn't know where he was driving, as he told me. He was just taking there, maybe to Mass Camp or somewhere.
Right.
And while driving, we had reached about Valpa. He asked me about my credentials, you know. I told him, well, I had 9 GCE O levels and I had my A levels. He pulled aside and he slammed my brakes. Just so. He said, what? I said, yes. He said, what you do with it? I said, well, I started working 2 weeks after going. He said, no. What you did with it? I worked. Well, here now. You have to be the most stupidest woman. That's how you put it there. Most stupidest woman
that
I have ever come upon.
Right.
Listen to me. You know, old people say the butcher drop. The butcher drop. The tears just come down. I felt shame. I felt stupidity. I felt embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then I just want to cry generally because my whole world
Collapsing, right?
the whole world collapsing already. And here what he used to put as the icing on the cake. And do you know, that was the game changer. That was the game changer because, you see, I am a person, don't peel the plaster off. Rip it, pull it off. By the time I say, ouch, it come off.
Right.
That was what I needed. That, it was like the scales, the rose-colored scales that, you know, I'm so well read. I have these levels, yes, but I'm so well read. I'm read out of a library of all philosophies, from the ologies. And you now come Jumper Shaw and telling me, and all you do is lying with the fellas and thing after and telling me I am the most stupidest. So you know it's ego. Pure ego talking. I was deflated. I was totally deflated. And out of defiance to that feeling, I say, I'm going to show you. That's what it was. I will show you. So he set me up with classes and word processing in Arima that he will take me after work. And he will sit with me to learn the word processor. Not computer yet, just the word processor. This in 1993. And then he came a day with a little ad and he said, look, I know you like to read and all these things, but I see this little course advertised in UE on behavioral psychology. Check it out now. And I did.
Wow.
And I started going to the classes. This time I'm crying through most of them. I ain't hearing what the lecturer saying, but I'm there.
Right.
Yeah, I was there, but not there.
Mm.
And I was doing it. And I felt good because, you know, I met people, classmates,
Right,
you know,
right.
we were going down good. And Carnival comes of 1995. Before that, I was still going out and whatever. But before the Carnival reaches, I realized that things are really, my well-being now is compromised.
Right.
So I said I will go down to Dad because he liked to go to Pan, and I will take him to some pan yards. So I left Carnival Thursday and I went down to take him to Pan that night, which I did. And I stayed over, because you know Pans go late, and I overnighted there. And Gregory knew where I went. So he came home while I was out. And he rang me to ask if I was coming to the house. And I say, yeah, you know, I have to come to collect some clothes to take Daddy to Pan later that night again.
Right.
So I said, so you'll see me once you're there. His sister, another sister he had here, Debbie, called, who's tall like him. And Debbie said, what are you doing? You know, this was Carnival Friday.
Right.
She had an idea, things weren't going mission together.
Mm.
And I said, well, I have to go up to the house to get some clothes. He said, pass for me. Because she was like a policewoman. She just said, pass for me. So I said,
Right.
and I picked her up.
Mm-hmm.
And we went up to the house, which is now daytime of Carnival Friday. Reggie was there, and we pulled into the driveway. And she said, listen, you ain't taking clothes for the weekend, you're taking your clothes. Just so.
Hmm.
I said, what? You know, but I didn't have time to think because she just take over.
Right. She just marshaled the whole situation.
That's the thing. And we went in, and she now peeping at me and seeing me, and her face was like stone. So she see me taking off one blouse at a time from the hanger, and I want to fold them, and she come inside the room. She would just lift off hangers together, like 20 at a time, roll them over, garbage bag.
Mm.
And we were finished. And in the meanwhile, I left my bag on the floor or in the next room, and I didn't know where we went there for the car keys. Mm-hmm. What I had also done, I had put the thing on the steering wheel.
Okay, kind of steering wheel lock, right?
Yeah, and he didn't know about that. He only knew the car had an alarm. Mm-hmm. So he couldn't get in to do that. So I had to go and say I would like the keys. And she was the one that took over and said, hand me the keys. And he was trying to kind of laugh and, kicks. And she just opened his fingers and took the keys. And she just signaled me. She said, you ready? Time to move. So she not in talk. Right. But apparently what she told me after, while I was moving around the house getting things, she was looking at him. And his face didn't look right, He was there back in her jeans and whatever, but she saw it as stalking me. Like wherever I was going, he was following me. And she being tall, I tell you, like him, he didn't try to challenge her. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, Greg, trying to make conversation like my mom, but he ain't hearing me. He not under, he realizing I'm going with things, but it was only clothes. And as we drove out, I am so nervous, because this feeling so final, as if I've left. And we went down, and I dropped her home, and then she called me and asked, what are you doing later? I said, well, I'm home, She said, we're going over the hill boys trip. I don't know who over the hill boys, I don't know where they are, but I'll get to learn. Mm-hmm. But they passed, and we went. My brother, one of my younger brothers, was home in Woodbrook. My father had them. And we went to this trip. But a day, but I'm not there. And when we got home from the fete at 2 o'clock that morning, and I dropped her home, she wasn't far from me on Tradley Road, and I went in. Tony, my brother, was there. He's Mr. Party.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't go out that night. He was home.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got him, he said, Jen, um, Greg in the hospital. So I said, in the hospital. So I think, don't take off your clothes yet. I think you had to go. I think he tried to commit suicide.
Mm.
What? Well, you know. So I called back his sister. And I said, so is the case. She said, pass for me. And we went. That was a long journey. That was a long road, a long night. And he really was in the hospital. I was scared. I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
But I told her to come in the room with me, and he was there. He drank I think it was Drain Clean or something like that.
Mm.
And I don't know, I can't ask questions now because he can't speak.
Right.
It affected his throat, and he was just sitting up. He was sitting upright in the bed and looking at me and looking at Andre. But we can't ask him things because no talking.
Right.
Just staying there. And I'm tired, but at this stage, you get numb again. Because at that point, everything went surreal. Everything was just surreal in my brain, like nothing making sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he was kind of sitting waiting. They had to get a bed, a proper room for him, you know. So when we left with him, the nurses too, and we noticed the nurses weren't taking, they were kind of dismissive. I only found out after they don't like treating with suicide victims too much because that person already wanted exile.
Yeah, right.
So why should they invest in time to get them back, you know?
Mm.
So one of the senior nurses would come and she told us, you know, why you do that, you know? You could drink a megaton or rum or something and sleep out at night, you know? She said, but that, what he did is so painful. Because it's like acid. And it's going to be, it's like burnt, so it will be burning its way through. But anyway, we have to get a room for him, and I left. And I remember the next day, which is Carnival Saturday for Panorama, I had to go to the house to get some of his clothes. And I brought the clothes and whatever I packed by myself and took it back down to the hospital. And I just spoke with him. He did get a room. I looked at him. He was lying down, can't speak. And I didn't go back after that. That was Carnival Saturday. It was not, they advised me, if I know I can't make it, don't
put yourself through
it. And by which time, I told the dad when I got back home what was happening, and he was like, he didn't, one thing with him, he doesn't reproach or anything. So, and before when I got when it was just before I had spoken with my dad and I said, like, things not looking this before when Gregory was acting out strange. I had spoken with my dad and I said, like, things are not working out as I intended. And all he asked was, is another woman involved? I said, I am not sure, but it may be. He said, okay, this is your home. It's always open. But I didn't go back to him. I had a family friend who had a place in Woodbrook, not too far. I just wanted aloneness. I don't want to be in a place where somebody had to call me on a phone ringing and whatever. And that's where I stayed in Lewis Street. Very calm, quiet, you know. And as I said, the guy that was checking in to know how I'm doing, you know, he was checking. He really stayed, you know, ran the course with me. And then Carnival Tuesday, because I'd never been in a band, play Carnival and all of that, but people were trying to divert my attention.
Right. So they're trying all kind of things.
My brother took me to Phase 2, Juve, and then I went back home. And then at this other guy took me on Tuesday. I went back again with my brother. And then while before the bar, I think it was 2:30 on Tuesday morning, the phone rang. I was at my dad at that time because I had to pick up my baby. And they said he had just died. that just passed away quietly because if he had to communicate, he had to write
Okay.
anything. So they did give me the folder that he wrote in, and he had asked them if he could, why they can't pump him, and they had to explain to him, with what he drank, there was no place to put a tube because it was burnt.
Wow.
What are you pumping? Everything was already burnt. You know.
But that stage, he actually wanted to live.
Yes, yes. And when I went home to get his stuff, I saw where he tried to drink some milk.
Okay.
But
Okay.
they tell you if you want to kind of dilute it, you can
Right.
drink
Yeah.
milk and try that. So that whole carnival, I was unplugged. And up to now, I have gaps. I can't remember where the dogs were. Yeah, certain things I can't recount. When clearly it was me because it's only me could have moved them, and I had moved them down to my parents and whatever because I had 4 dogs.
Wow. Okay.
But
Yes.
I can't go into the detail of that. But that was being changed. So after he died, that was 1995. Jen is here, unplugged, surreal.
Wow.
Life have to start from ground zero.
Once
Now
again.
42. I'm now 42. Learning the computer. I stayed away from the UE class for that two
Period.
weeks or 3 weeks. And then when
Right.
I went back and I told them what happened, well, they were like, couldn't believe. And I'm saying this to say, when I made the announcement of what happened during my absence, when the class was finished, a pretty in East Indian girl, she lived in Central, she came out with me to my car. She said, you don't know what you have done today. I said, what is it? She said, would you believe today I was leaving class. I already put out everything home to commit suicide.
Wow.
She said, all the pills, all the note, everything is written. It is home waiting for me to just go back home to do the act. And here you come, representing our survivor.
Right. Right.
And that made her be free. So after that, I went from word processor to computer. This is during the little time. And I said, you know what? After I came into the work world with my GC, but now it's a world of degrees. Where am I going? And it was after that, after his death in February, it was Carnival Tuesday, February of 95, VSEP notification came out. And I applied. I was the first applicant. And I applied for VSEP based on your memo. I didn't know where I'm going, what I'm doing, but I just know I don't need to be at work. I'll finish with that. They allowed me a month off, if I needed it. But I left BE, got a check, and I say wherever this will take me. And I started doing SAT, which I was told if I have to, because his sister was abroad at the time. And that is his younger sister. And she advised me that if it is I wanted to study, come up to North Carolina to do community college, I could do, and then go on to university. That was where the journey began. In the SAT, I took lessons, don't know what it was, whatever, but this was an entrance exam for colleges abroad. And I decided to put my house up for sale. And I sent out the ad because I was now saying, you know what? When it happened, well, of course, BWIA was like, nah, they were thinking it's somebody else. Couldn't be. But when I went back out to work, they were like, someone to say, Gayla could have told you, that. And I just said to myself, I don't need the stories. What I have to know, I got to know. And I don't need the stories. And I need to cross water. That was the directive I got.
Cross water, right.
Do something.
Right.
And I started building towards that. And I got accepted at the community college.
So how was it then that the choice to get into gerontology and all of that?
All of it was, everything was fluid. because when I got up to North Carolina at Wilmington, and I got an old car because they sell old cars up there very cheap.
Cheap, right.
Cheap ones. And I really liked where I was. And I was sharing with her husband while she studied in Raleigh. And I went to the community college and was just acing everything. Like, you know, this is, and the teachers were like, oh my God, you know, I come now like the model student.
Right.
And while there, I got a phone call from, I made a phone call from where I was staying to Trinidad at Gregory's aunt. We always remain friends up to today.
Right.
I rang her and I said, girl, look at whatever channel, ABC or something was having a special that night. Tune in to it. And she said, wait, I have somebody here that I need you to meet. And it was Dr. Lynch, Ackland Lynch, who is Trinidadian but lives in Washington and lectures in UMBC,
right.
University of Maryland, Baltimore County. He was visiting. And so I went on the phone, I don't know him, and I said hello. And he said, hi, baby. That's how he is, lover number one. Hi, baby, what's up? You know, I say, well, so. He said, well, what you doing in a community college? You know, you ain't got money. So why you in a community college? You need to be in a 3-year college. I said, well, I was just going on the advice of, you know, the sister. He said, okay, when I come up, I will do the do, you know. And he did come up. He went back to Washington and he mailed me a pack of jazz tapes. He said, you listen to that, you know, real classics, traditional jazz.
Right.
And he said, you go ahead with that, and then you'll come across to meet him, come by train, and he'll pick me up at the station and show me around the campus of UMBC to see if I could acclimate and like the feel. Because I've never been on a campus.
Right.
And I did it. So Joanne's husband, who I said was with me, he took me to the train station. I sent a photograph of what I looked like to Ackland. He sent one to me. And then when I got there, he told me to bring a business outfit because there was something that happened at the college that day.
Right.
And he did take me around. He showed me to all the faculty and so and whatever. Everybody was so enthused, you know. Because what he did do before I went there, when he sent the tapes, he also sent an application form to UMBC.
Oh, okay.
And so fill that out, and I sent the catalog and decide what you want to study. So when I went through, the only thing that gelled with me was social work.
Right.
And that's what I put, you know, and I filled it in and sent it back to him. So by the time, in no time, I was accepted. And so that's why he wanted me to come across to see what the campus looked like. And I went by train and I spent the weekend with him. And I had finished the semester at the community college, Cape Fear Community College. So I got, you know, A++ and whatever. And had all the writings I did and what. But this was like equivalent to our what? I don't know what community colleges are like, but like a precursor.
Yeah. Community college probably would be similar to like A-levels, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah, because our A-level is it's like almost a first year of the college.
Yes.
So I had finished the term and I was home. And then Bill was his name, and John's husband. And I told him what happened. And I wrote a thank you letter to them for the accommodation and everything that went, you know. And I said, well, Bill, I have to drive to Maryland. And I ain't even sure if my car, it was a 1983 Pontiac.
You don't make it.
But he said, don't worry, I will be ahead of you and you follow. And it took us some hours because it's the highway. And I went across. And as fate would have it, before leaving, I called home to my sister to let her know what was happening. I came home for summer to let them know I got accepted. Right. I wouldn't be at North Carolina again. I would be going across to Maryland.
Right.
No, if you see Daddy's face, all he said was, I told you so, you know. I could have told you that this is where you were supposed to have gone years before. However, not in a reproachful manner. They were just so very happy.
I see.
But what happened, why I brought this in, is because now I was able to really ground with them. And while there, I would go through, walking through the departments that I would visit with my friends with. And one of them who used to play football and cricket, Munch. Munch said, where did you say you're going? I said, Maryland. He said, well, you know Chivo, which was another one of our co-workers. Chevalier up there, you know. I said, no, Chevalier live in Canada. He and the wife. He said, no, they transferred to Maryland. I'm giving you the number.
Right.
And he gave me the phone number. That's all I have. So when I went back, and my sister told me of a colleague who was in school with her that lived in Maryland.
And that's well, right.
Let me find this number in my diary. And she gave me the number. So when I am leaving them, I'm going back to Wilmington.
Right.
And it's by that phone number I called her friend who I don't know, who lives in Silver Springs, Maryland. And she was so happy to hear from me, and she does know me. And she had surgery done.
Right.
So she was on extended sick leave, so she was home.
Oh, okay.
I was able to give the directions to Bill. And that's how we drove across to Maryland. And I was able to park my car in her garage.
Right.
And then use the number Munch gave me to call and see if David was really in Maryland.
Right.
And when I called David and his wife, Lisa, because I was closer to David, and Lisa answered, and I said, this is Jenny Rouse. And she screamed out. And said, where are you? And I said, well, in Maryland. And she said, we come in.
Right.
And they drove down, which was nearly Pennsylvania, but they were also in Maryland.
Right.
And they drove down. They said, pack a bag. You're coming to spend at least the weekend. And I went back because he was not working at the time, so he could have chauffeured me, which is how it turned out, to find an apartment.
Wow, so everything just lined up and was working.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so, when I tell people, whatever is your intention, pay attention.
That's it.
And I left, and what is also important, I was now in surrender mode. Because all the osophy, ology, reading, discipline, whatever that I have done up till that point, I was now, you know what? Life is what happened between the plans. So I didn't have no big plan again. I go in with the flow.
Awesome.
And I just said, God, thy will be done.
That's it.
And so said. So that check that I got from Beery's VSEP, I was able to convert to US and wherever it took me. And it was able to finance my care community and my first academic year in UMBC.
Oh. So, Auntie Jenny, I'm now gauging time, and I want
to have 3 minutes to reach 12, and I want to finish in those 3 minutes.
So here's what I'm gonna do. I need to get out of here these 2 questions I asked all my guests. The first one is, had you the ability to go in time as the 2020 Miss Dr. Jennifer Rouse and go back to speak with I would say the 15-year-old Jennifer Rouse and give her some bits of advice on the direction of her life and what she intends to do or what she going through at that point in time? Is there anything you would share with her or advise her to do differently, or what would your advice to her be?
Well, I know I usually tell colleagues and my friends, I consider that chapter or chapters as part of the paperback version of me.
Right.
Now, post Gregory is the cloth bound hardcover, where I'm not guessing what I'm doing. I don't have to get it wrong before I know I should do it right. Wherever I place my foot, that's where I want to go.
Right.
But not with any definitive, well, I'm going there because I already know the outcome. No, it's because I'm not knowing. And that was the thrill that I got, because that flowed. There was always these serendipitous moments throughout my entire university career. And because of the trauma, which I didn't feel, but clearly I felt, but I didn't feel, but clearly had an impact. on what I had gone through with his demise,
Mm-hmm.
what I was able to do with yogic discipline,
Right.
internalizing the shift, and being in that space,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do the 3 degrees in 7.5 years. And only in speaking with a psychologist after, he said when persons go through trauma, you can either flip out into a nervous breakdown or you can do something extraordinary. So clearly, what I did
Was
without
the latter. Yeah.
going inside
Mm.
and saying each part of the journey through university, when I started getting the A's and the A pluses, and I got honors for a double major, which I did in 2 years instead of 4. I was like, I could do this. Why not?
Why
And it
not?
was at that juncture that the dean of the grad school asked to meet me and find out what was my plan. I said, well, to go back home because I have no money. I have money up until this point. He said, no, I'm not asking about the money. What do you want to do? And had a conversation with me. And it is during that conversation, he was able to say, to feel me and say, you know, you sound more like somebody who should be in policy. And policy being a combination of economics, political science, and sociology, said that should be a good fit for you. So they really walked me through it because I didn't even know what a dissertation and all of that was. I just know I needed a degree to go back home.
How was that?
And that's how the journey went. So I did finish my thesis. And why I chose aging, out of curiosity again, when I was now a candidate from my master's, doing the policy, there were tracks that you could choose and apply the policy to. And there was this lonely agent. All the other candidates were doing like valuation or sociology.
Right.
And I chose aging. I said, what is there to do in aging that will require a master's and PhD level?
Right.
That's how I went into it.
Wow.
And so when I started in part 1 saying aging chose me, that was what I meant.
That's what you meant.
Everything seemed almost accidental.
Right.
And that you're tripping into this, always guided kind of this world of wonder, kind of like a wonder. What does this have? And even when I finished, and not finished, but doing my research, I would use the same airline that I never liked traveling much. When I left with VSEP, I had 9 more years of free travel.
Oh, wow. So you could have well...
That was what I used to fly home to get data.
Right.
So when persons would ask me, what am I doing? And I said, what I'm studying, they say, Rouse, where you going with this degree? All people is just dead. And I said, where you going? I said, look, when we reach that bridge, I'll cross it. And 2 months, when I was in my final semester of the dissertation writing, I had about 3 more chapters. That's when I came home again to get data from Ministry of Social Development. And the guy there who would always give me the research say, where are you? So I say, well, I'm in Trinidad, but I'm flying back out, in 2 days. He said, you saw the ad? I said, no. He said, well, the ad came out today for the director of the Division of Aging. I said, well, when is the deadline? He said, day after tomorrow. So I'm flying up tomorrow. So I'll have to send it down FedEx.
Wow.
That's what I did. I flew up, get up, and sent it in. And then I flew down for the interview. And a month after, they told me I was successful.
You see how it is?
And I will end with this quote, which is what I ended my interview with for the job.
Right.
I was so full of energy when I came down for that interview, coming home, getting this job, because my professor cried. He said, because it's 0.0001% of doctoral students that get a job in sync with what their thesis is.
Right.
And your thesis is a roadmap, because I wrote on a case study of aging policy and the role of interest groups, And so when I did that, and I came home, I said, well, to go home is like fitting a 1,000-watt bulb into a 40-watt socket. But
right.
I'm a Trinity born, a daughter of the soil. So I will leave with this quotation as a good closing. At the interview, there was a long panel of about 7 or 8 of them from different professions, because I'm a director level, so they have
Right.
to permanent secretary, etc. And when I was finished, and I said, well, does anyone have any other questions? Because even when they reached the part of the salary, they knew the salary was so mingling that even the HR person was sliding in the chair to say, well, all her body language was like, and I am like, okay, because I want to come home.
Right.
And when I stood to leave, I said, I will leave with this one quotation from Martin Luther King when he was in the Birmingham jail. He said, on some questions, cowardice asks the question, is it politics? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? Conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when he or she must take a stand, that he or she must neither be based on being popular, politic, or safe, but because conscience tells him or her it is right. I said, and so I leave you knowing that I'm doing this for Trinidad and Tobago. I have a lot to offer, and all I'm doing is telling you, avail yourself of it. And last but not least, I am not coming, if I'm successful, I'm not coming to the Ministry of Social Development. I'll be coming to minister in the ministry.
As you have to us.
And that's how
Jenny,
that's now is history.
Auntie Jenny, I want to thank you so very much for sharing your journey and your grace and your wisdom, and who knows, again, I might have to call you back for our next feature at some point. You understand?
I'm not in the sequential way that we did.
No. We might be
You will know better.
But we have so many nuggets in this. Listen, we can start whole different topics on one little point that you got. But Auntie Jenny, again, thank you very much.
Most welcome.
I want you to have a blessed day.
And one of the feedback I got on part one is I am agreeing.
You are.
This is where I said I would like to be at the end of the journey.
You are.
Agreeing. So here I am, and you made the invitation.
Thank you.
And gave me the opportunity to practice.
All right, you have a blessed day. Thanks so much.
Blessings.
Take care.